Let's take atheist.
Yeah, there's 5.
5.
Or 4 and 4.5. We'll go with Rafael in Florida. You're on with Don and Matt.
Oh, man. How's it going, guys?
Hey.
Mixed bag. How are you?
Yeah, so I'm doing all right. The main question I wanted to ask is, let's say you have two beings. Let's say a pedophile priest who spends his life hurting children, and atheist who is a doctor, spends his life helping children. What do you use to determine which being is more moral than the other?
I don't. So there's about 12 things to correct there real quick. First of all, and this is just a pedantic point, we probably should say pederast priest because that's about the act. Pedophile, while it's been used as a pejorative forever, really just describes someone who is sexually attracted or aroused by children, and that's independent from what they do, and that's not a choice or decision they made any more than they chose to like chocolate ice cream over vanilla. Those people are in need of help, but there are plenty of people who have those attractions who never act on them. So that's just a linguistic thing of I'd rather point to pederast priest. I don't look at individuals and sum up their character as a whole and say, oh, Don is more moral than Matt. I look at events and determine whether or not those events were moral or not. And so the atheist who's helping people could also be doing 1,000 other things that are, much, much worse than, or at least in the same ballpark that we know about. So you can't summarize the whole of somebody's character by an individual act. And I know that's troubling for a lot of people, as is the comment about pedophiles, but it's just the way it is. I mean, I'm not defending, rape is rape, and it's disgusting and awful always. Yes, we look at it as more horrific when it's, done with children. There's no way to excuse. It's an inexcusable thing, and those people need to be held accountable for it. That's independent from what they're attracted. Just like if somebody was attracted, there's objectophiles who are attracted to mailboxes. They didn't choose to be attracted to a mailbox, and as long as they're not molesting my mailbox, good for them. But
yeah, sure.
I find it difficult to sum up the whole of somebody's character to say this is a good person or this is a bad person. But I recognize that colloquially, what we tend to do is there are some things that are so horrific that we look at it and just say this is a bad person. And I'm fine with that. I just don't tend to do it. I tend to talk more about what they've done as bad. Not even because I'm convinced that everybody's capable of redemption.
But let's get to the larger question
Sure.
of how would we judge a moral act.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say it was maybe an error on my part in the way of asking the question, but I guess I could reframe the question towards, maybe their intent and their action. We could maybe say which action is better than the other.
Well, helping people is better than raping people. That one's pretty easy.
One promotes well-being and the other does not?
All right, so that was another point I wanted to get to. I watched your video on morality, and I agree with a lot of things. I disagree with some other things. One of the main disagreements I had was about how you're talking about morality is based on well-being, but you don't really go much further than that. I guess the thing that I would argue is that well-being isn't just an action, well-being isn't an action.
No, well-being is
like
the state that you're comparing things to. And it's not completely understood, and we don't fully understand well-being, but we understand enough. So the fact that we don't have all the answers doesn't mean we don't have answers. Like, would you agree with me that feeding someone who's hungry is better than raping someone?
Of course, of course.
And we don't have to go to, the reason for that isn't because a God says so or anything else. It's about which one promotes well-being and which one detracts from it. Now, then you can have more complicated questions of, is it better for me to keep giving someone free sandwiches or to teach them how to be self-sufficient? Well, that's a little harder to figure out which one of those might be better than the other. But I would say that both of them are still on the good side of the line. And so pointing out things where we may not necessarily be able to say, this is morally right, because I think there are some things that are essentially amoral, where there's no more, like, it's not immoral for me to like chocolate ice cream.
Agreed.
Unless liking chocolate ice cream encourages me to buy more chocolate ice cream, which fundamentally affects my health, which affects the rest of my life, which can have moral consequences for the people around me. And if the ice cream that I'm buying, this particular chocolate ice cream that I like, is being the ingredients for this are being immorally produced, and you've got child labor and all this other stuff. You could go down to my liking of, you could do that. You could say, oh, you like chocolate ice cream, therefore you're a shitty person because it has all of these other consequences. And it may even be the case that if I'm aware of those consequences, now it does become something where I'm immoral. But that doesn't mean that we're stuck where we can't decide anything.
I agree. So would you agree that the action of somebody caring about the well-being of someone else, would you agree that that could be called maybe love?
Yeah, you could. It would fit. Love is defined in so many different ways. You could love, compassion, empathy. Empathy is probably where I tend to go.
Would you agree that God, in a general sense, has to do with power and authority?
I don't know which God. Which God are we talking about?
Well, I mean,
We don't know of any gods.
as far as the Abrahamic religions and their usages of the word God, as far as I understand, there's two main usages. There's, lowercase g and capital G. Lowercase seems to me to be geared more towards the
I'm sorry, I have to laugh. Mankind has invented, tens of thousands of gods. The uppercase G is used for a Christian God, and it's kind of like naming your dog, I think. It's
But what is it you're asking about?
Well, just that God, in a general sense, has to do with power and authority. Like, you don't call something a God if you don't see it as a power or authority.
No. There could be if, let's say, the Abrahamic God was real.
Yeah.
I would agree that God is described as powerful, and I would agree that there are people who think that God has authority. I don't recognize any authority over me.
What about the deistic God who may have created the universe and went off for a fishing trip or something?
But also power and authority aren't morality.
I'm sorry, what was that last question?
Power and authority, even if we said, okay, yes, the Christian God is portrayed as powerful and portrayed as an authority. That's not what morality is.
No, so basically the point I'm trying to get at is that God, as far as I understand, and you can correct me, in a general sense, in the Abrahamic religion in the Bible, is used to maybe refer to something that people worship or revere or value. And morality is based on well-being, because love is an authority on how we should behave.
No.
So I guess the argument that I was trying to get to with that is that because of that, God is love.
Yeah, no, that's absolute garbage from start to finish. And I can kind of explain why. So the fact, you're kind of like making an argument from analogy that, well, morality is a little like this, and that is derived from these characteristics like love, and God is a little bit like that. So now God is somehow tied to morality. Well, the truth of the matter is that the Abrahamic God, we have no evidence that it exists, but even if it does exist and we go through what's written about him, what's spoken about him, it's a jealous God, a vengeful God, a loving God.
He's a fucking monster.
Yeah, he's a monster at times. Yes, he has power. Yes, he has authority. He's not in any way about equality or fairness or justice or the things that we actually value, because we now understand that those things directly contribute to the well-being of humans. Matter of fact, there's no evidence that this God cares at all about the well-being of humans. That the laws and instructions that he gives, there's no evidence that those are about how to have a better life. Don't wear polycotton blends. Don't eat shellfish. Don't pick up sticks on the Sabbath. Okay, wait, there's one here that says don't murder. Hey, that leads to well-being, therefore he got it right. Well, if I make a list of 100 things and you point to 20 of them in that list of 100 things and say, those are good things, therefore you're the authority on morality. When those things are mind-numbingly easy, I didn't ever need a God to explain to me why I shouldn't kill people.
Yeah.
And I don't need a God to exist in order to have a rational justification for not killing people. I'd rather not be dead. Don would rather not be dead. Our continued existence is directly in the interest of our well-being and possibly in the well-being of society.
Yeah, hey, let's not kill each other.
Hey, It's really easy. Thou shalt not steal. How does that come about? Well, I have stuff. I'd like to have my stuff. I'd like to be able to keep my stuff. You'd like to keep your stuff. And so now we understand that the world is fundamentally better with us having some protections around our life and our stuff. Because if we got rid of those protections, then you could just walk in my house and take anything of mine that you wanted, and there would be no recourse for that. I couldn't even say, setting aside the law, I couldn't even say that was wrong of you. Except that we recognize that this is fundamentally doing harm to people. That's all we need. Well, why would we need more than that? And while you want to phrase it as like love, first of all, I'm not convinced the Abrahamic God has anything to do with love. And considering a lot of the conversations that I've had with Christians, including when I was, and even myself when I was a Christian, I think they have a very, very, very perverted view of what love is.
Well, 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7, I think
love is patient, love is kind.
Yeah, love is patient, love is kind. It doesn't envy, doesn't boast.
God so loved his child that killed him.
Doesn't envy, doesn't boast, and yet this God that is supposed to be the perfect thing, a perfect representation of love, is envious and boasts. As a matter of fact, the whole Moses
Jealous.
performing the plagues is God showing off, because what happens is. Moses comes up and says, "Let my people go," and Pharaoh's like, "Screw you!" And then Moses does something terrible, and Pharaoh said, "Screw you," and then Pharaoh's like, "Oh yeah, I'll let him go." And then what happens? God steps in and hardens Pharaoh's heart so that he won't let him go because he's not done fucking showing off yet.
So much for that free will thing.
Where is the love from the Abrahamic God ever? For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Well, okay.
So he could murder somebody.
Yeah. I'm the supreme loving ruler of the universe, and I make all the rules, and I'd like to forgive you, but I can't. So I'm gonna come down and take human form and have myself killed temporarily, give up a part of a weekend, and then I get to continue being God, to act as a loophole for rules that I created. That's not love.
That's performance art.
Whenever my parents wanted to, needed to forgive me, they loved me. And they forgave me. I didn't have to do anything. They certainly didn't have to kill my little brother. Now go back all the way to the beginning, to the ridiculous Genesis story. God creates two people, plants them down here, and says, "Don't eat these two trees, but you can do, pretty much whatever you want to do with everything else." Now, what kind of idiot doesn't understand that as soon as you put two essentially children in a room and say, "Those are the two things you can't touch," they're going to go touch this. Well, of course, there's not a modern theologian that doesn't think God didn't know what was going to happen. Of course God knew what was going to happen. And when God comes down to the garden and is walking around going, "Hey, Adam, hey, Eve, where are you? Why are you hiding?" "Oh, we're naked, Lord." "Well, who told you were naked?" And this is God, from the Christian perspective, looking like a caring parent who's like playing hide and go seek with a kid that's behind the chair, and they don't have object permanence yet, so they think that if they can't see you, that you can't see them. And so God knows all this is going to happen, and God knows what's going on. He knows they're naked. He knows why they're naked. He knows exactly what happened and everything else. And yet he's walking along, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, well, I told you, don't eat of that. And now you're going to, I told you on the day you'd eat it, you'd surely die, except that he doesn't actually do that. And through the whole story, the only one that told the truth in the entire story was the serpent. Now there's no love coming from anybody in that story. When he decides to flood the entire planet because he is screwed up, he's made people and they're just not doing what he wants them to do. Well, I need to reset. What kind of God wouldn't have known that was coming? Why would you need to push like if I create a Sims game and they don't understand me, that's my fault. And if I create a Sims game and the Sims start doing shit I don't like, I'm imperfect. That will catch me by surprise. But why would I ever create a Sims game knowing that they were not going to do what I liked and that I was going to have to destroy all of them but 8 people, a drunk and his sons, and reset humanity after that? And then when that doesn't work, then instead of trying to save everybody, I'm going to pick out one group of people and say, "You are my chosen people. Let's go out and kill all of the other people." None of this. This is what I talk about when I say that Christianity, Judaism, Islam, all of them have a perverted sense of what love is if they're trying to point to God as love.
I mean, they have plenty of verses that state distinctly what love is,
we're not interested in rescuing the Bible
for another person. So I don't understand how I mean,
If I say to you, Rafael, I love you, and I do something nice for you, like I take you out to lunch, and then I beat the shit out of you, and I lie about you, and I spread rumors about you, and all these other things, and you come to me and you say, you don't actually love me, what good would it do for me to say, hey, I bought you a sandwich? You don't get to point to the things that aren't bad as a way of excusing the things that are.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, you're judging God's perspective from a subjective perspective, and I think that's kind of like
what other perspective?
I have children.
What other perspective could I possibly judge anything or anyone from other than my own?
Yeah, but that's not what I meant by that. What I was trying to get at was you don't not have children just because they might make some mistakes.
Yes, that's exactly why I don't have children. How do you know?
Well, I'm saying it is a perfectly, like, you can have children.
See, I love the way you phrase this.
And accept the fact that they're going to make mistakes.
Yes, but if you created the children flawed and you are the all-knowing, all-powerful creator of the universe and you intentionally chose to create flawed children and then decided to punish them for those flaws, you're a prick.
I mean, how do you know he didn't give us free will?
Well, because first of all, we don't have free will in that context. But second of all, what difference does it make? If God created you with free will, knowing that it could go wrong, and then punishes you for exercising the free will he gave you, he's still a prick.
How? Love by definition allows for free will.
Yes, but love by definition doesn't include punishing people for exercising that free will. Why is this so difficult for you to understand?
Actually, love by definition does punish people who act against love.
Really? That's what love does? That's what I'm talking about when I talk about a perverted sense of love. Yes, you can love someone and want to correct bad behavior, but you can do it in a loving way and not by creating a torture chamber in the basement where you're going to send somebody forever.
I mean, that's not generally the way I understand the Bible. The way I've understood it was God sends signs, God sends messages, and gives people chances to turn their life around, and then when they don't, God has to be just.
Why?
Because God is love, and love takes care of its own.
I thought God was merciful and love was mercy.
Love is mercy, but
well, do you not? No. You can't have it. You can't have it both ways, Rafael. Justice means you get what you deserve, and mercy means you are exempted from getting what you deserve. You can't have both.
Those are two sides of the same coin.
No, they're not. Justice means you get what you deserve. Mercy is a suspension of justice. You deserve to go to hell, but God is going to be merciful and take you to heaven. That's mercy, and that's something that's designed from love. So you don't get to say that sending me to hell is just and sending you to heaven is mercy, and that they're both an exercise of justice, because you got something you didn't deserve. And so did I, by the way.
All of this, in a sense, kind of begs the question anyways, that you could replace the pederast priest with God, and you could say God is immoral, but the reason God would be immoral in the first place is because you would define him as not loving, but it's a whole loop again. It goes back to what I'm saying about morality being based on love.
Yes, it's a loop because you're in a circular argument that begins with God is loving and just when you don't even have evidence that there is a God, and all of the evidence about that God flies in the face of the claim that God would be loving and just.
So you're saying love doesn't exist?
Wow.
No.
You know, I tell you what, I'm going to let you go now, Rafael, and then when this clip comes up, I want you to go back and listen to it, and I want you to email tv@atheist-community.org with whatever sentence or word combination you think I uttered that made you think that I claimed that love doesn't exist, because what you're doing right now shut the fuck up. What you're doing right now is avoiding addressing the actual issue and making accusations against me that aren't true. I didn't say love doesn't exist. It doesn't, but I hadn't said that yet.
Well, no, I was asking a question. I was asking for clarification.
Yeah, questions don't begin with, so you're saying love doesn't exist. That's called a straw man framing, and trying to play it up as a question now means you need to go listen to that and write us.
Okay.
Good day, sunshine.
We didn't even get on the subject of slavery.
I'm trying not to do that every week.
Okay.
It's just too easy.
It's just too easy.
Yeah. It's funny because when This actually, the real problem was when we talked about, he wanted us to be able to sum up the entirety of somebody's character. And I said, I don't really do that. I don't sum up even fictional characters, like the God of the Bible. I don't sum up his entire character as if he's good or bad. There are things that are attributed to that God, which I would say are good and loving, and there are things that aren't. But when you try to simplify it to God is love, love is what morality is about, therefore God is about morality, when you're pointing to the Bible, or the God of the Christian Bible, the only evidence we have is of that fictional character. And that fictional character is a mess.
Yeah, he's a dick.
Oh, I'm going to love you, but not you. And I'm only going to love you as long as you're doing what I say you're going to do. Oh, he beats me because he loves me. He punishes me because he's just. Well, where's the demonstration that what he's doing is just? How is infinite punishment for finite crimes just?
Let's make a deal with the devil and shit all over Job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, destroy Job's life, because, this life is like dirty rags. The entirety of Christianity turns everything we know about human experience and life into a place, as you pointed out years ago, as a place to wipe your feet before you get onto the real life.
Right.
That's just bizarre. If the real life is what happens after we're dead, and God already knows who's going to the good place and who's not,
why bother?
Why didn't we start there?
Why do we need a dress rehearsal?
Oh, well, you needed to live it so you'd understand it. Well, okay, could God not create me in hell with the understanding of how I ended up there without me having to go through all the work? Why do this thing with hell in the first place? Why create people? What was God missing from his perfection, which is already a conundrum?
Yep.
Or a
paradox.
So if God's perfect, he's not missing anything, but clearly he had to be missing something in order to create people in the first place. As a matter of fact, that was one of the first questions oh crap, I shouldn't. There is a book that I'm working on. There's a lot going on. But the first question is, why would God create anything in the first place? If I'm God and I know everything.
And you're perfect.
And I'm perfect, then I'm not missing anything.
Why mess that up? Yeah.
And so, God just loved people who didn't exist so much that he wanted to give them existence, even though he knows it's going to be hellish. And that a good chunk of them are going to spend he created people knowing that they're going to spend an eternity in some variety of hell, even if it's annihilation. Oh, it's this beautiful gift I give you. Well, send a fucking receipt next time, because I'm sending it back.